Originally from Shelby, North Carolina, Dandrick is a versatile trombonist known for his warm and pure sound. He credits his mother's singing in the church's choir as his first and greatest musical influence. Mr. Glenn enjoys a diverse career as a performer and educator. He is the applied low brass professor at Fayetteville State University. He also serves as a low brass musician in the 553rd Air National Guard Band of the Northeast. Mr. Glenn served as a bass and tenor trombonist with the Band of United States Air Force Reserve, United States Air Force Band of the Pacific Asia, and the United States Air Force Heritage of America. Mr. Glenn's performance credits include Celine Dion, Johnny Mathis, P.C. Winans, Randy Brecker, Ernie Watts, Renee Marie, and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. He also performed for Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and for numerous foreign and American dignitaries. Mr. Glenn attended the University of North Carolina, earning a bachelor's degree in music performance with a second major in journalism and mass communication. He continued graduate studies in music performance at DePaul University, followed by earning a Master's of Music in Education at Norfolk State University. His primary instructors include Charles Vernon, Mark Fisher, Michael Chris, and Paul Adams. Let's give it up for Mr. Glenn.
All right, hello everyone. Hello class, community and friends. My name is Dr. Joram Reed, Director of Advanced Fayetteville State University. And we've already introduced our guest clinician today, Mr. Dandrick Glenn, colleague, special friend. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on over to Austin Chalmers. I'm in the control room handling all of the mechanical, electronic logistics on this end. And let's see, Mr. Chalmers, when you're in queue, I'm gonna make sure you are well highlighted and we'll do a quick sound check and, you know, we're ready to go.
All right, how's everybody doing? I'm here on site with our clinician today, Mr. Dandrick Glenn, as you can see behind me. He's very excited to be here today. Again, we thank everyone for being on the call today. Students, alumni, any music educators, any community leaders, high school students, middle school students, college students, we just appreciate your support for what we have going on today. I'm here with Mr. Dandrick Glenn, very accomplished trombonist and music educator. And again, he has a wealth of knowledge that he's willing to share with us today. So without further ado, Mr. Dandrick Glenn.
How y'all doing? Everybody doing all right? Good to see you. The applause. It's great to see everybody on the call. Again, my name is DANDRICK. I'm excited to be here today doing a masterclass / recital of sorts. Not going to be before you too long, but I hope that this is going to be very informative, entertaining, and educational for everybody on the call, whether you're a music major, educator, or not. I happen to have a second degree in journalism and mass communications, and that was a very valuable thing for me to do. So the title, if you will, of the session today is going to be The Sum of Your Habits. First piece that I performed was a stereogram written by David William Brubeck. He wrote a series of stereograms, if you will, for bass trombone that features the instrument on the melody, and sometimes going back and forth between harmony, bass line, and other accompanimental figures. The first piece was dedicated to the late, great Maurice White and Louis Satterfield, both of the legendary group Earth, Wind, and Fire. A great way to start. Actually, my first ever collegiate marching band show was an Earth, Wind, and Fire tune. The opener happened to be In the Stone. That should sound familiar to the band members. Anyhow, let's start the journey musically at the beginning. Let's take a way back in the time, back in the 80s. Yes, I'm going to date myself a little bit. So I played on a horn about this size. I was grateful to have a good quality working instrument. You want to have something that is of great quality when you start throughout your journey, and maintaining that good quality instrument throughout your journey. For instance, the trombone, what I tell beginners at the beginning, be very, very careful with the slide. You want the slide to be able to move quickly, efficiently, because the slide, as you can see, is half the horn. If the slide doesn't work, then thus half the horn doesn't work. So the same thing with reed instruments and other things. If keys are bent, or if there's an issue with your reed, or if there's an issue with a drumstick or anything like that, you have to get that rectified quickly, because you won't be able to maximize the resonance from the instrument. So this is an unaccompanied recital, right? So usually you have a piano or other instruments with you, but you guys have been playing unaccompanied since the beginning. Here's a sample of probably you, definitely me, when we all started around 5th, 6th grade. That was probably week 3. You learned the parts of the instrument, you learn how to put everything together. You were getting your first sounds out, all of those things. Then you get excited, Christmas time, first concert. You want to show off that you can play a Christmas song. Now imagine if I didn't grow as a person and as a player. You probably wouldn't want to listen to a full recital of me sounding quite like that. So that leads into the first thing, that you are the sum of your habits. So those were some habits that I demonstrated from when I started as a sixth grader. Cheeks puffed out, air being congested in the throat area and things like that, and not allowing the instrument to resonate properly. Other bad practices from when I was in middle school, quick story, a sixth grader would often have his slide take off flying, end up in the flute section. And again, like I said earlier, that's half the horn. So if half the horn doesn't work, the horn doesn't work. So that's not a good thing. So those are habits that you have to break. So over time, how do you break those habits? Glad you asked that question. Fundamentals. And I know that some fundamental exercises that I know that you all do, or I hope you do, you should do. Your band directors or other instructors have given you this information. The reason they give you this information, it works. It really works. It really works. And a lot of the fundamental exercises from when I was a sixth grader, I still do today. So in that first measure, the first piece I played was the first note that I ever learned. And most of us ever learned, that's a concert F. Let me do that one more time. See, that was a bad habit. I tried to take an inhale and I didn't get everything to respond properly. And this is why those things have to be reinforced. So when you're in a pressure situation like I am right now, cameras on, people are watching, I have to do certain things with repetition so that when the lights are on the brightest and everything like that, it's something that I do instinctively and not necessarily think about. So here's that again. So I do a lot of simple exercises kind of based off of the remington that you typically do in your band class. I still do those. I find those to be very effective in helping me get the best sound that I can possibly get from note to note to note to note. And that's what you want to continue to do. And that's on any instrument, because we all came into being in band or what have you to play songs. No matter what the song is, whether it's a Christmas song or some simple childhood songs, or that should be something that you guys should recognize from the marching band. I Love Your Smile. That was a great tune. Great tune. I remember that. I'm not going to exactly say when that came out. That's what Google is for. But anyhow, you want to continue to grow in that, making your best sound as possible throughout the full range of your instrument. Another thing that may be considered boring, mundane, scales. I know. Why do we have to do these scales? Why? Like the first song that I played, I Love Your Smile. Being familiar with the scale helps you really internalize the tones throughout the song, and also being able to play them slow, fast, and even in the extreme registers between octaves for particularly our woodwind friends that have ranges up to 3 octaves or more. You want to be able to sound your best where the music is played. I affectionately call that the money register. Speaking of the money register, know that there are a few middle school students that are out here. So all your band director talks about with your scales, your chromatic, they're helping you be able to play throughout the full range of the instrument and continue the development to be able to play different types of songs. And for our middle school folks that are on the call and high school folks that are on the call, more and more colleges are offering monies, if you will, for scholarship if you participate in band. So a great way to prepare for those things is to audition for all district, all county, and hopefully if you place high enough in all district, you will qualify for all state. Most of the time, the solos and requirements are pretty much the same for all three of those events. So in my journey, I went from playing an instrument this size, and one bad habit that I had as a younger person was I didn't always control my air. That's one habit that I had to break. Probably the best way to describe it is, I'd say, the speed limit analogy. You can drive a car 75, 85, 100 miles an hour. That doesn't mean that you should. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. So it's the same thing with your airstream. So if I played a note like that, that sounded pretty gross. There was a bit of chord to the sound, but if I did that as a steady, regular diet, you probably wouldn't want to listen to me play. So over time, I had to learn how to control how I move the air to make certain things happen. So I would do exercises like this. Again, starting on that middle F, so I would know how to control the airflow as I move the air quickly and as a fast quantity to play louder, and then figured out how to control the air as I play softer, not necessarily moving a large amount of air. And for the interest of time, I do that throughout the entire range of the instrument, particularly when I'm locked in with a longer routine. So I'm going to move over to a large instrument. This goes into the next thing that I am going to play. This is an etude that was done by Marco Bordoni, and these are vocalises that are super important to the trombone repertoire. Actually, I believe every brass player plays a variation of these. Johannes Rochu was also the principal trombonist for the Boston Symphony, and he did these transcriptions while he was that principal trombonist for orchestra. So the last few years, the all-state trombone etude was one of these. So this one is the number 7 from the Melodious Etude book. There are also very, very good resources on the internet as well, where you can practice with a professional player. So in addition to having resources here through this class, there's actually the principal trombonist from the Boston Symphony did a recordings of these, Mr. Toby Off, and it's very fantastic. Especially during this pandemic, you have access to so many great musicians and great players. Please take advantage of it. I know I have, and I've learned a lot from other fine musicians. So this is Rochu number 7. Thank you very much. Another thing that I personally like to do with these particular etudes, we mentioned playing with a great sound throughout the range of the instrument. And particularly for trombone players, but tuba players can do this as well as far as adjusting the range as or whatever. I like this particular etude I really like because I like to play it in a couple of different ways. I'll do the first couple of bars. Like you can take that same etude and you can play it in tenor clef. And this helps you work on your upper register. Again, maintaining the best quality of sound from note to note to note in a singing style. You can also play that in tenor clef down an octave. You may also play it in bass clef down an octave or 2 octaves, or if you're really brave, bass clef up an octave. But that's something that you have to really work on slowly but surely because it's a marathon, not a sprint, to win this race. Going back to lyrical playing or whatever, your first role model was your band director, right? And he'd also have you do some other things that would help you improve with your sound. One of my teachers gave me this bag. This is a 5-liter breathing bag. Now, I used to think that because I made it to graduate school at DePaul University that I've arrived. Honestly, I was just getting started. And I had lessons with some real world-class players in Mr. Charles Vernon and Mr. Mark Fisher. Mr. Mark Fisher gave me this bag. So he'd have me do an exercise, something like this. So about quarter note. And then I let the air out. So you see the visual with the bag. You can do something like this with a pinwheel or holding paper up at a certain point, like something like this, and you're releasing the air and getting the paper to move. So you can kind of see what the air is doing as you're playing. And as you control your airstream, that helps you play with the best sound from note to note to note, keeping the lips soft and keeping the airflow going. You vary that in different ways to make the music happen. One of the best to do that in a lyrical singing style was Mr. Bass Trombone, and I'm talking about George Roberts. He was the former bass trombonist for Gene Krupa and Stan Kenton's big band. His sound was considered or really is considered the ideal sound of the bass trombone, arguably one of the most recorded bass trombonists. So he recently passed away. So this is in tribute to Mr. George Roberts. This is stereogram number 3 by David William Rubeck. Thank you very much. I know that not all music is slow and connected. I understand that. And the way that I like to address things that are in different styles is I like to incorporate them in my warm-up. And this is an exercise that I definitely incorporate in my warm-up. The beginning of this piece has a ostinato pattern, if you will. It's kind of like a low to high bass line to kind of set the groove up for this Latin piece. It's actually a Latin arrangement of a traditional piece that's found in the church and where I grew up in. And like I said, like it was said earlier, my greatest influence was my mother singing in the church choir. And just that sound of voices singing in that manner, just thinking of it gives me goosebumps. And to do music, or really to do anything in general, you have to have faith. Whatever that is for you, you have to continue to have that belief to keep you going. So this is a tune that was inspired by faith and was dedicated to Doug Yo. Doug Yo is a fantastic bass trombonist. He was the bass trombonist with the Boston Symphony. And to tell you how times have changed, www.yodoug.com. That was one of the first websites that provided a ton of information about the trombone and about a lot of things, particularly bass trombone oriented. A lot of great information. And this was in the early to mid 90s. And he was definitely a pioneer in that regard. And that website is still up to this day, continually updated, and has a lot of great information. So this is How Great Thou Art. And here's the exercise that I like to do to kind of start everything. Playing real soft and all of that, it's really, in my opinion, based on feel. Because sometimes and this even happened today, even as I was trying to play soft and connected with the fear of not overblowing the mic, you would airball it or something like that. So what I really try to do is just touch the note. So this is based in concert E flat. So what I would do is I would play in different ranges of the instrument that ostinato pattern. It may not necessarily be a scale pattern, but it'll be a pattern nonetheless, and just touch the note. And I would do different things like that based off of whatever I played. So if I played something like that where it was in a higher pitch, I would incorporate that in my warm-up. Now, I haven't played in the extreme register that much all day, but that is something that I try to work on whenever I'm asked to play in that extreme part of my range. I try to address the full range of the instrument and try to get the most optimum resonance. So again, the sum of your habits. So you really want to continue to incorporate all those things consistently so that you can play with the clarity and control at a maximum level so that you can make the best music. So this is, again, How Great Thou Art. Thank you very much. So to kind of put everything together as far as the sum of your habits, it's a journey. It's a journey. I've been on this musical journey for, I'll go ahead and say it. I've been on this musical journey for over 30 years. I actually started in 1988 and very heavily influenced by a ton of music educators, a ton of other fine performers. Some may have popped on this call. So you listen to what they say and try to practice it on a consistent basis to get to the next level. And you never know where this will take you. I never imagined that I would be a military musician. Never imagined that I would be an applied instructor at an institution like Fayetteville State University. I'm in a lot of ways not gonna do it like LeBron James. He says he's the kid from Akron, but there are moments where I think back to when I started on my grandmother's front porch in Shelby, North Carolina, that I look back at that and how far I came on this journey. It's amazing. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of consistent work, but also it's a lot of people that I met along the way. I've met the coolest people and done the coolest things through this thing called music. And I was able to meet you guys. Okay, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty because of the room here. So I apologize if it's completely black. We should be back on 5, 4. There we go. There we go. Interesting things happen when you do it live. And this is also a little bit of a dry run, if you will, for something that we hope to do a little bit later. If any of this is informative as far as advice, particularly tips on fundamentals and such, I would like to eventually host a trombone or even a low brass day, particularly geared to musicians wanting to get better, wanting to have more fun with what they're doing, and for those that are really in particular wanting to audition for all county, all district, and even honors band if they qualify for that. And also to help prepare for college auditions as well, just so you can get an idea of where you are, and we'll continue to give you honest feedback on those things. So, all right, making sure the lights stay on before going into the last piece. Looks like we're working very well. This last piece is a little bit of a tour de force. So it really combines everything that I talked about today, from playing smooth and connected, trying to play with your best sound, having control of your airstring to get everything to happen musically. This is a piece written by David Fetter. He was the bass trombonist for the Baltimore Symphony. And this piece was recorded by one of my favorite bass trombonists, Mr. Bear Bollinger of the Philadelphia Orchestra. This is a movement from a series of bass lines. One is written in the style of a boogie woogie big band from way back in the day to a rock groove. And this one is written with kind of a Spanish flavor to it. So I kind of think of it as like bullfighting type of scene, like I'm the matador or something. So you may hear some of that come out in this piece. Again, thank you, Dr. Reed, Mr. Chalmers, for the opportunity to be a part of this series. I saw the ones a couple of weeks ago with the other distinguished educators. Wow, you guys are doing some incredible things. So for all the music educators on this call, thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. Y'all are doing amazing work, particularly in the middle of this crazy time right now. So thank you so much. This is David Fetters, Spain.
Everybody, take your phones off mute. Take your device off mute and just give Mr. Glenn a round of applause. Definitely. Yes, Mr. Glenn, we've been talking about this for a while, man. I really appreciate you doing this for the class and our students and being open. Appreciate your spirit. And really even more so the progress you know, that our students are making under your tutelage. You know, I mean, just leaps and bounds, and what you've done with the students. So all of my students, you know, just everyone, you know, we see Mr. Glenn always coming out to help. As a musician, in addition to things with music and arts, let's give him another round of applause. Right. Right, and I think we may have had some questions. I'm gonna let Mr. Chalmers handle it on this end because I don't know how the audio is on your side.
We're doing some different things to make that work. So for anyone that has a question, feel free to come off mute, and I'll do my best to answer any question that anybody has. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a lot of fun.
Hello, Professor Glenn.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good, wonderful. I see the title is named The Sum of Your Habits, and most musicians tend to drive their instruments from 9 to 5. So my question is, when is a good time to take a break from practicing?
Okay, the main thing is I suggest practicing in short bursts. There was a study done like way back in the day about where there's a will, there's an A, and the study showed that people would learn in shorter increments. And also the great legendary trumpeter Bud Herseth from the Chicago Symphony also recommended practicing in like 20-minute sections. So say for instance, for you happen to play tuba, 20 minutes of a nice warm-up routine where you really, I want to model it a little bit, is you really want to focus on the tone in the beginning, your air and your tone. So like one of the first things I like to do is physically stretch to make sure that I'm as relaxed as can be, because you don't want any tension within your playing. So in the tuba range in particular, like your first note, that concert F, what you're really striving for is a good feeling within your face and also a nice open ah syllable, not a heavy T syllable or D syllable if you're playing legato, more open ah syllable. Like one of the things that Mark Fisher did with me in getting more refined as a graduate student was really getting the ah out in my sound, really getting a stronger vowel syllable in my playing, similar to vocalists. So 20 minutes, really digging into the fundamentals. Do everything from slow to fast with a metronome. Also in the next 20-minute block, then you get into your etudes that you're assigned by your teacher or really by me. You know what I've assigned you. Take a little bit of time to work on that, dig out those details. If your face needs a break from that, take time to do something that we haven't really talked about that much, and that's a little bit of buzzing. The only reason I haven't really talked about it that much is for most students, it's really getting them to actually move the air through the instrument. Buzzing, I think, reinforces a lot of things, but the main thing is figuring out how to move the air through the instrument, because you play an instrument, you don't buzz an instrument, but buzzing does help. An exercise similar to this, based off that first note that you learn, that F, that's where everything I think kind of starts for me. Not everything will feel the same way as that first note that you learn, but because of just the physics of playing, as your corners get tighter and all that stuff, but you want as much relaxation as possible. So a buzzing exercise would be something like this. It's still based off of the remington that you do all the time. And if you really want to get more advanced with it, that was a 1 octave kind of a siren type thing. Or if you really want to get even to more extreme, getting into some of those. Those are exercises. I have to give credit to this one. This is my big brother, Ron Wilkins. He was a military musician, bass trombonist, tenor trombonist, euphonium, tuba player, fantastic all-around low brass artist. And there's a series of these exercises with a YouTube video on the internet. And if there's any questions about anything that I reference with people or anything, leave those in the chat and I will answer them via email dglenn@uncfsu.edu. I'll definitely do that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Your question?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I have a question. So in your opinion, how many consecutive days do you think it would take to break a habit that you formed over the time of playing?
Okay. Everybody is different. Some studies say 21 days, but the main thing is consistency. When you're trying to break a habit, you have to stick with it and whatnot and not be discouraged, where you have the confidence in trying this new thing or new to you thing will make you better. And the proof is in the pudding sometimes, like when you record yourself, like if you practice for a few days, consecutive, effective practicing, not just noodling around or just fooling around playing whatever, but really focused, concentrated practice. You tape yourself, hopefully you hear results, because again, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. It's not a sprint. You train differently for a sprint as you would train for a marathon. In this thing, particularly as music educators, and if you want to really do this for the long haul, you really want to be really solid in your fundamentals, because you're teaching those fundamentals to your future students. So you want to really be that example and lock in. So clarity of how you practice, but most importantly, consistency of practicing good habits will help.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If I'm too thorough in my answers, that's 20 years of being in the armed services. So I tend to be thorough and I tend to be pretty direct, but also very polite. Are there any other questions? Feel free to come off mute and feel free to ask what you'd like to ask. And they don't necessarily have to be exclusively music questions. I've had a rich career in the military, and I've also understand certain principles as far as time management. When I was your age, I had a major in communications in addition to music. And I know that being a college student does have various demands on your time. So time management, get that into whatever you're doing now, because that will serve you well for the rest of your life. I promise you.
This isn't necessarily a question, but I just want to say thank you, Mr. Glenn, for all the work that you've done with me to help me become a better player that I am, and for the work that you still the tips and the stuff that you give me now. I just want to say I really appreciate it. And for any other brass player that's in this chat and they go here, please go work with Mr. Glenn. Like, he will give you so much information to be a better player. He's even giving me worksheets to just help my tone, help me hit more notes. So please, utilize him. Every time you see him, he's always more than glad to come and help you. Even if he's on his way out the door, he'll still take his time to help you, regardless if it's a rhythm or regardless if it's just technical stuff. So I just wanted to say thank you so much.
You're welcome, and your progress, man, has continued to be great. The thing that I will say to you publicly is just continue to keep the work up. Continue to, because I know that you're also a woodwind player, if I'm not mistaken. So for you to switch over from a woodwind to a brass, that's incredible. I stink on flute, for instance. That's my worst instrument. I sound like a dying duck on saxophone. I really do. I'd rather be a live chicken than a dead duck, so that's why I play trombone. And it's supposed to sound like a dead duck on saxophone.
Hey, Brother Glenn, this is Pratt, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and check your email. It might be in your spam folder. I did get your quotes for you.
I appreciate that. Hey, I did have a question too that I wanted to ask you, because I know before the pandemic and all the stuff going on, you had opportunity to visit a lot of band rooms and to visit a lot of band classes in general. So if you had opportunity to tell all directors that are out here teaching what would be something that you would tell us to focus on that you noticed from just walking into all band rooms? What would you advise us to work on?
I would say this is probably a three-part question. One is obviously the why, because it's so different, because you're used to performing for the public and doing the very thing that you do. So continuing to keep everybody's spirits up. This is hard because this is something that we haven't experienced. And I would say the second thing is really make the fundamentals fun, because again, that enhances your ability to play a variety of songs. Because like the first demonstration earlier, playing Mary Had a Little Lamb and other simple songs, you grow from that to playing Flight of the Bumblebee or whatever other song that you would like to play. So I know that I couldn't play Flight of the Bumblebee now if I couldn't play Mary Had a Little Lamb. So the progression on my fundamentals, just really digging into that. And I'd also say some recordings where that can be fun, because the tape doesn't lie. When the tape is excellent and you put out something extra, you're like, wow, that's something that can kind of live and you stick your chest out. But even as this is being recorded, I'm going to listen back to this and I'm going to go back and see, okay, what could I have done better? Could I have explained a concept better? Could I have played this better? And really dive into the fundamentals. So that's kind of my thing in a nutshell. A lot of schools I haven't been able to really see a lot of folks as well. They haven't been able to really offer visitors and things like that. But I've done different Zoom calls and emails and tried to be as encouraging as possible. Your work, my brother, and I'm proud to say that I really consider you a friend and a brother. Your work is not in vain. It's really not. To all the band directors on this call, your work is truly not in vain.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, Brother Glenn, James Reese, only a few miles from your hometown. How are you doing today?
Oh yeah, you from Spartanburg. Yeah, I know who you are. Yes, sir. Fantastic
Yes, sir.
gospel. This is Mr. James Reese, everybody. Fantastic gospel trombonist, all around great man. So give it up for Mr. Reese.
06.
Oh,
06.
I hear you, brother. Listen, I just want to say this to you. I turned 78 and on the 20th, a few days from now. But I just want to tell you this. It's so important what you're doing. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you investing in the talents that the master sends your way. And that's for you and Brother Pratt too. Hey, Brother Pratt, I just want to tell you that, man, to keep investing in the talents, because it's going to pay off dividends for you. And I just want to tell you, I was here all the time and really enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. That really means a lot coming from you, sir. Thank you so much.
You. God bless you. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. I just thought of something to add to what Mr. Pratt was asking about, something to teach or what have you. I know, Mr. Pratt, that you have your students do different chromatic scales going up and down, but particularly with brass players, a good brother taught me this exercise, Brother Dion Tucker out in New York. He dealt with something called focal dystonia. And that's a hard thing, to where this doesn't respond and you may not be able to play. And one of my mentors, one of my first section leaders in the military, Chief Master Sergeant retired Steve Fitz, also dealt with focal dystonia. So one of the things that, particularly in bands that may play aggressively on the field, is you end up blowing yourself out. So here's an exercise that I tend to do now that is kind of saving me. I'm doing this on the small board because this will be easier, because I'm gonna go into some upper extremes. So I take a chromatic scale, slow, about mezzo forte, nothing really loud, but just trying to make sure that the feeling here in my face is not crazy, where I'm not like overextending my corners and things like that, particularly in the upper register. take it off my face, and in the interest of time, I'm just gonna go up slightly. I take that off, but I'm really focused on blowing more towards the top of the mouthpiece as opposed to blowing down into the bottom of the mouthpiece. So pray for me. I'm gonna see if I can get this. So that's something that has really, really helped, because at one time that F at that dynamic would not come out at all. I would have to force it. And you saw how the tone quality was forced as well. So an exercise like that really helps me focus in the upper register and how I'm breathing and blowing, because you still want to be as relaxed as you can possibly be, no tension in the sound. And also in an ensemble context, it's basically the 80-20 principle. Don't play over 80% of as loud as you can play. Because if you try to give that extra 20, you're in that zone where you could really do harm to yourself and also do harm to the group, where things become out of balance. You're not necessarily saving the band with your sound. I used to be super guilty of that in a lot of ways. And I'm glad that I broke that habit, because if I didn't break that habit, I would not have the career in the military. I would not have the opportunities that I have as a professional player, educator, if I did not break that habit.
You know, that could be stepping on a lot of toes, and you know, there's a lot of different things happening in the collegiate band rooms nowadays, and I hear what you're saying, and I see how you're working as a professional, but sometimes that's not what a lot of younger musicians want to hear and play. They want to go get it and go get it loud and strong.
Yeah, you definitely want to get it loud and strong, absolutely. But there's a context of everything. I mean, who doesn't, as a brass player, enjoy playing loud, proud, and strong? I mean, yes, it's fun. Yes, it is a lot of fun. So yeah, I'll do it. Like that Prokofiev Romeo and Juliet, that's the bass trombone part where you're in octaves with the tubas. Yes, you do want to go nuts and things of that nature, but what if I backed off about 20% off of that and really focused on the air doing the work, a heavier T syllable at the beginning, but a nice warm A syllable on the back end, like something like this. The power is still there, and you hear more of the overtones in the sound instead of a whole bunch of not so nice stuff in the sound. One of Charlie Vernon's things was more air and no sugar honey in between the notes. It's probably the cleanest way to say it, or whatever. You don't want to have any junk in your sound. You want the most beautiful sound from note to note to note. And what's more impressive about Chicago brass playing, if you will, it's really soft playing. Yes, when they get it loud, they get it loud. Yes, that's exciting. But when they play soft, you're like, whoa.
Mr. Glenn, I do have a question for you. Since you've had a good career in the United States military band, could you speak to the process of preparing an audition for military bands, and as well as being successful in the military band world and field as well too?
That's a great question. Okay, first things first, or whatever, is to check, I think it's bands.af.mil. And there should be a list of any bands that have openings, and they have a general list of requirements. So what I would really suggest for anybody, even if they're well into their undergrad or even high school players, is to start to get an idea of what that looks like. Because honestly, in this day and age, you can't afford to not audition for any military band, even the Air National Guard bands. The benefits from even the Guard bands are incredible, particularly the education benefits. For instance, in the state of Pennsylvania, I believe, and you can check this, I don't want to quote any bad information, but in the state of Pennsylvania, you're in the Guard, you can get a tuition waiver, if I'm not mistaken. So it's different from state to state and whatnot. The GI Bill basically paid for my graduate degree at Norfolk State University. Now, if you pursue any graduate degree, you need to go for free. Yeah, just flat out, you need to go for free or pretty darn close to it. And the biggest thing, again, of what they're looking for is we're looking for good people that can just flat out play. Attention to detail, beautiful sound from note to note to note, and just make a statement with the music. Even if it's a small excerpt, it's still music. So this is what I mean by detail oriented. Like what's often asked at many auditions, and this is both orchestral auditions and even military band auditions, they're really wanting to see what type of musician you are, particularly in the first round going into the semifinals and into the finals. So for bass trombonist, it's the Sarabande the Cello Suite No. 5. That's a beautiful piece of music. It's based in C minor. So to prepare for it, I really work on that, making sure my tone is even throughout. I'm not necessarily mimicking a cello. I'm playing the trombone with the optimum resonance to sing the song. And so on and so forth. And whether you're playing something smooth and connected or a march excerpt, you're still singing the song. You're still singing the song. And one thing that I forgot to mention in the fundamentals class, and another thing that I think people can work on in this pandemic, singing. Because singing, that's your first instrument. You don't have to take vocal cords out the case. And a lot of times when you've internalized the music vocally, it's just a matter of figuring out the technique on your horn. And in a lot of cases, the breathing, the phrasing, you figure out as you sing. But definitely audition, You can't afford to not audition. Shout out to, I'm gonna name some names. I'm gonna try not to miss any names. Sarah Howard Carter, the only African-American flute player in the Air Force Band career field. Shout out to the Hornbuckle twins. Brian Hornbuckle, I think he's the Chief Master Sergeant trumpet player, and Michael Hornbuckle, a Senior Master Sergeant bass trombone player. He and I at one time were the only two active duty African-American male trombonists for like a 15-year period. He's a fantastic, well, actually both of them are fantastic people and fantastic leaders in the band career field. And there are countless others that are, and we need more to have more diversity in what our bands look like, as well as what our country looks like, to where that truly fits. If we're about 12 to 20% of the people in the nation, then all of our musical organizations should reflect that as well. And it's about opportunity, knowing about opportunity, because I think with the right preparation, we can win those opportunities.
Hey, Professor Glenn. I have a quick question. What was your favorite duty station?
Okay. Favorite duty station. I'll give 1 and 1A. One is Japan. One is Japan. The opportunity to live abroad was an incredible experience, even down to what I happen to be wearing right now. Seriously, I would not have what I'm wearing right now if I didn't go to Japan. I had the opportunity to perform an event at Osan Air Base in Korea. And all of the older guys said, Dandrick, when you go to Korea, you need to get a suit made. So I got a suit made. And the best part about it, and this is me being goofy, it still fit in 06. That's when I bought it. So that was my favorite duty station. But Langley Air Force Base, I spent the majority of my career there. My grandmother, God rest her soul, got to see me perform in uniform on several occasions. And during that assignment, that was where I got married. I think my wife may be on this call. Gotta mention the wife, because in any significant other, particularly in a military situation, the family serves with you in a lot of ways. So to my wife and my daughter, if they're watching, glad to see that you guys are on. But yeah, those two were probably my favorite places. And literally, I got to see the world. The trombone literally became a passport because I had an open mind to taking the audition and being prepared to win an audition.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. For me, being a woodwind and a brass player, I kind of have the habit of tending to keep my woodwind amateur while playing the tuba, and I wanted to know if you can help me with any way to like try to get over it, because I know sometimes when I play the tuba, I play a little too softly, and then it's like, okay, can't do it. But then when I get back on my clarinet, I kind of overpower my clarinet. So can you like give any advice towards that?
Okay, the biggest thing is, again, you figure out how you move your air to get the optimum resonance from the instrument. Because think about it, clarinet or whatever, you move in and it happened again. It happened again. You all right over there? Okay, we'll get the light back on in a second. Obviously, it's a weird technical difficulty where we are. All right, good, you can see me now. All right, so as far as embouchure setup, say M. Say the letter M. Yeah. So that's kind of your basic. Embouchure. What I would suggest is continue to flatten your chin as you say M. Your corners firm up and all of that. The main thing is just figuring out how to control the air, because when you blow and release the air, this part, the aperture, becomes really, really wide at times. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to control it. It's a different type of air movement, obviously going from sousaphone to clarinet. Clarinet, you're blowing mostly cool air, but it's still controlled kind of like a grown-up version of a recorder, versus playing a tuba where you have to really move an ocean of air, particularly when you have to be buoyant when you're playing neck, when you're playing in the stone, or pretty much any of the music that you're playing in the marching band.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Glenn.
Yes.
How you doing? This is Mr. Connor.
Hi, Mr. Connor. How you doing?
I'm doing well. This is amazing, and I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this for us. I wanted to ask a trombone specific question as a fellow trombonist. There's, I guess, different thoughts in terms of maintenance for our slides. Some professors will be more apt to use grease or Slido mix or, of course, oil. But, again, I wanted to talk about what are some maintenance things that you do to make sure, because our slide is definitely different than any other instrument that's out there. And so I wanted you to talk about some maintenance things that you do to make sure that you have the slide in good working condition to play at your best level.
Three things. One is based off the lubricants that you use. I think my three biggest recommendations are the Yamaha slide lubricant. This is in no particular order. The Yamaha slide lubricant, the Slotto mix. I like the one bottle, the Rapid
Yep.
Comfort. There are other people that make some other products that are pretty good as well. I think those are my top two. The other thing is to regularly, at least once a year, get it taken to the shop. Get it taken to the shop. Like recently, I had this done on my bass where, like, as you can see, the rotors here, like this really wore out. And obviously being a bass trombone player, going in and out of your double valves, you want them to be as efficient and as quiet as they could possibly be. So finding good shops wherever you are. I'm fortunate where here, I'll shout out my guy. This is my man, Scott Sweeney, SweeneyBrass.com. You can actually see horns out there. He is a fantastic musician, also a trombone player, a very good trombone player. I think he did some of his schooling at the Manhattan School and is an incredible repairman. He did custom work on this trombone, on both of these trombones, actually. So we stripped the finish off of here. We did a brush finish. We redid some of the wrap here. He put a new brace there where you can kind of see it. And on this horn, we did something we stripped the lacquer, and this horn is also convertible, where it can be played as a straight horn.
Great, great. Thank you, thank you.
Anybody else? Any more questions? Okay. Let's see. All right, for those in the band class, we just sent you some information in the band app and on Canvas. Please read that. University needs something from us on tomorrow that I'm not gonna put out there in public, but just look at it in the app. Drum majors, if you can assist with that. So it's that same particular situation. So hopefully if we get that done, we'll be able to move forward with the rest of this year and getting some other things done. Let's see, Mr. Chalmers, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we appreciate everybody that's on the call. Appreciate some of the directors, Mr. Connor, Mr. Pratt, Mr. Pickett, Mr. James Reese, another great musician on the call. I'm kind of scrolling through. Mr. Rita Waters, appreciate you. See some alums, Tyson McNair. Appreciate everybody that's been supportive, all the students that are on here from your respective high schools. We appreciate you all's support. And again, you can make Fayetteville State your home because we'll take care of you. And also we have quality teaching, as you can see from the Masterclass today. I want to say personally, Mr. DANDRICK, I want to appreciate you and everything that you've done for these students. And again, they appreciate you. And, you know, we want to, again, continue the relationship that we've had with you going forward. And, you know, a lot of great things in the future that's going to be coming from yourself and the teachings that you've been giving to our students, man. So thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Awesome.
All
right.
Awesome.
That's all I got, Doc.
Okay. And yeah, so now next week we have another one of Fayetteville State's own, but Fayetteville State's alumni, Ms. Rita Waters, who will be presenting on next week. So we're really anxiously looking forward to that and getting a lot of her input. So I'm really excited about getting, you know, these Bronco alums in. So we're looking forward, definitely looking forward to that. And then the final week of October will be a special sort of a hybrid presentation where we're gonna bring in musicians who are band members who are also former drum majors at the collegiate level and high school level, but are for lack of better words, involved in politics. So it is important that we all understand how being at HBCU and how funding and certain things do impact us. You know, so there's a lot of things out there, and then hearing it from a perspective of someone that was in a band. But that is 2 weeks from now. So again, band class, make sure that you check that message and show up at that time. Let's see, some things in the chat. Okay, let's see anything in the chat. All right. So with that being said, thank you. And then I'll cue the outro. And the music we're hearing is Mr. Glenn himself playing.